Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Pratantikam Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 4, Satī quits her body. So, Mudit Krishna Prabhu, we are at which text? 19.
It's 19, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So, we are at text 19. न भेदवादाननुवर्तते मतिः स्वे एव लोके रमतो महामुने यथा गतिर्मनुष्यशो यथा गतिर्देवमनुष्यशो पृथक् स्व एव धर्मेण परं क्षिपे स्थितः. Translation.
It is better to execute one's own occupational duty than to criticize others. Elevated transcendentalists may sometimes forego the rules and regulations of the Vedas, since they do not need to follow them, just as the demigods travel in space, whereas ordinary men travel on the surface of the earth. Purport: the behavior of the most elevated transcendentalists and that of the most fallen conditioned soul appear to be the same. The elevated transcendentalist can surpass all the regulations of the Vedas, just as the demigods traveling in the space surpass all the jungles and rocks on the surface of the globe. Although a common man who has no such ability to travel in space has to face all those impediments. Although the most dear Lord Shiva appears not to observe all the rules and regulations of the Vedas, he is not affected by such disobedience. But a common man who wants to imitate Lord Shiva is mistaken. A common man must observe all the rules and regulations of the Vedas, which a person who is in the transcendental position does not need to observe. Daksha found fault with Lord Shiva for not observing all the strict rules and regulations of the Vedas. But Sati asserted that he had no need to observe such rules. It is said that for one who is powerful like the sun or the fire, there is no consideration of purity or impurity. The sunshine can sterilize an impure place, whereas if someone else were to pass such a place, he would be affected. One should not try to imitate Lord Shiva. Rather, one should strictly follow one's prescribed occupational duties. One should never vilify a great personality like Lord Shiva.
Yeah. So now, Sati, he mentions that for a personality like Lord Shiva, there are no obligations of rules and regulations. Na vedavada anuvartate matihi. It is better to execute one's own prescribed duties than to criticize others. Now, this is very important, right? It is better to be engaged in one's own prescribed duties, occupational duties, than to criticize others, and especially others are the great personalities like Lord Shiva or Lord Krishna, right? Elevated transcendentalists may sometimes forego the rules and regulations of the Vedas because they do not need to follow them. And somebody may say, how it is possible? Everybody, all rules are same, no, Prabhuji, for everybody. No, it is not same for everybody. Just like the ordinary humans, they are subjected to law of gravity, but the demigods, they transcend the law of gravity. Another example is that aeroplane. When we are driving the car, we are subjected to the signals. There is a red signal, there is a green signal, yellow signal, and we will follow the signal. But when somebody takes off in an aeroplane, he has transcended all the signals on the road. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains the behavior of the most elevated transcendentalists and the most fallen conditioned soul may sometimes appear to be same. But the elevated transcendentalists are on the elevated platform. So, to the vision of Daksha, Lord Shiva might have looked like a person who is living in the smashana, moving here and there with the ghosts, drinking poison in the sense, that Neelakantha, having the snakes around. It may have looked like a very ghastly behavior, but Lord Shiva is Mahiyasam, is an extremely powerful personality. And therefore, sometimes it may appear that he is not following the rules and regulations of the Vedas. That one is supposed to take dhyayam, the 3 times bath one is taking, one is doing achamanam, one is doing sandhya vandanam, and one is doing all other regulative activities for anybody. But Lord Shiva is beyond all this, right? A common man must observe all these rules and regulations of the Vedas. However, one should not expect a great personality to observe them. When somebody is powerful like sun or fire, there is no consideration of purity or impurity. This is very important. Many times people forget this, that people think that, oh, everybody is equal and everybody should follow the same rules and regulations. No. Lord Shiva and the great demigods, they do not come in this category. And then what to speak of? The Supreme Lord Krishna. And this is where Lord Ram becomes very beautiful in the sense, because he is the Supreme Lord. He's as supreme as, the Lord Krishna, because he is Krishna, none other than Krishna. But he follows the Maryada Purushottam. And when he follows Maryada, the conditioned soul, he thinks, oh, very good. He is nice Lord. He is following Maryada. He is also following rules and regulations. But even Lord Ram is also Purna Purushottam. And he can completely transcend anything and everything. And therefore, one should not try to imitate Lord Shiva. Many times there are people, very, very stupidly, they think, oh, Lord Shiva drank the poison. We will also drink Madira, Masa, they have the 5 M's, they will follow on Mahashivaratri. Madira, Mamsa, Maithuna, Matsya, and one more. And they will be thinking that by drinking bhang or something like that, or drinking some intoxicant, they are actually following Lord Shiva. But by drinking intoxicant, actually they are going to ditch and not following Lord Shiva. Because Lord Shiva should not be imitated. He's on a very, very high pedestal, on a very high platform. Just like, example given is, just like the sun or fire. Now, when we are walking on the road and when our feet touches some stool, immediately we are supposed to take bath. Because we are impure and one is supposed to be purified by taking bath. But the sunshine is so powerful, sunshine can evaporate all the stool of the universe. And still sun remains the most pure personality. So that rule, the sun is also touching the stool. We are also touching the stool, but we are supposed to take bath and sun god is not supposed to. Why? Because the sun or fire, they are extremely powerful. They can purify even the most fallen place. And therefore, there is no consideration of purity or impurity for such high personalities. And this is very important because in the 9th canto, we are going to see some bewildering activities by some demigods. Like, Chandra, he elopes with wife of Brihaspati, Tara. And then there is a fight between Brihaspati and Tara, Brihaspati and Chandra. And the demigods, they take side of Brihaspati because Brihaspati is their guru. Demon sees the opportunity, they take side of the Chandra. And there is a big battle goes on. Finally, Lord Brahma comes, he settles the things. And in the same Chandra dynasty, later the Supreme Lord is going to appear, Yadavapati, Krishna. So Chandra, so what it means is that we should not be judgmental, and especially we should not be judgmental to the senior personalities, the senior Vaishnavas, the very senior advanced devotees. We should not be judgmental. This is very important thing. Text 20. Karma pravrittam cha nivrityamapritam vede viviccha ubhayalingam virodhi tat yoga pataireka kartari dvayam tatha brahmani karma narchati. Translation.
Translation: In the Vedas, there are directions for two kinds of activities: activities for those who are attached to material enjoyment, and activities for those who are materially detached. In consideration of these two kinds of activities, there are two kinds of people who have different symptoms. If one wants to see two kinds of activities in one person, that is contradictory. But both kinds of activities may be neglected by a person who is transcendently situated. Purport: the Vedic activities are so designed that the conditioned soul who has come to enjoy the material world may do so under direction, so that at the end he becomes detached from such material enjoyment and is eligible to enter into the transcendental position. The four different social orders, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa, gradually train a person to come to the platform of transcendental life. The activities and dress of a Grihastha or householder are different from those of a sannyasi, one in the renounced order of life. It is impossible for one person to adopt both orders. A sannyasi cannot act like a householder, nor can a householder act like a sannyasi. But above these two kinds of persons, one who engages in material activities and one who has renounced material activities, there is the person who is transcendental to both. Lord Śiva is in the transcendental position because, as stated before, he is always absorbed in the thought of Lord Vasudeva within himself. Therefore, neither the activities of the Grihastha nor those of the sannyasis in the renounced order can be applicable for him. He is in the Paramahansa stage, the highest perfectional stage of life. The transcendental position of Lord Śiva is also explained in Bhagavad Gita 2.52-53. It is stated there that when one fully engages in the transcendental service of the Lord by performing activities without fruitive result, one is elevated to the transcendental position. At that time, he has no obligation to follow the Vedic injunctions or the different rules and regulations of the Vedas. When one is above the directions of the Vedic ritualistic injunctions for attaining different allurements and is fully absorbed in transcendental thought, which means thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service, one is in the position called Buddhi Yoga or Samadhi ecstasy. For a person who has attained this stage, neither the Vedic activities for realizing material enjoyment nor those for renunciation are applicable. Hare Krishna.
Now, Satī, further she says that there are two marga, that is pravritti and nivritti. Both these pravritti and nivritti are very bona fide margas, but those who are elevated transcendentalists, for them, they are neither going to follow pravritti nor going to follow the nivritti marga. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the Vedic activities are designed in such a way that one will take shelter of the Vedic, those activities, and elevate oneself. Tasmat Shastra Pramanam te Karya Akarya Vyavasthito. And this is how there is a very systematic arrangement of Varnashram. And this is especially the four social orders, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. It is to gradually train the person to elevate his platform. And therefore, the activities and the designation or the indication or the dress of these ashramas will be different. Prabhupada says here, activity and dress of a grihastha is different from the activity and dress of a sannyasi. And therefore, it is impossible for one person to be grihastha as well as a sannyasi, having the two orders at the same time. Sannyasi cannot act like a householder, neither the householder can act like a sannyasi. So when one is a grihastha, one should live like a grihastha. Right? It is very important. Sometimes, people try to imitate the another ashram. I was speaking to somebody and, that in grihastha ashram, you cannot have a brahmachari kind of a sadhana. Right? So if your wife is cooking, you may have to assist in cooking. Children are getting ready in the morning. And then we have to assist children getting ready in the morning. It is not that you say that, no, morning, 6 to 8 is my japa time and I cannot be disturbed. I am a sannyasi in my grihastha ashram. No, sir. You are a grihastha means behave like a grihastha. So it is very important. So Prabhupada says activities of a particular ashram has to be followed in that particular ashram, and therefore one should have realistic expectations from oneself. Of course, it is not about becoming loose in one sadhana, but point is that one cannot be so fanatic in one's activity that in following one particular ashram in grihastha ashram that the entire house is frustrated, or the wife is the she is just from morning 5 to 12 o'clock she is in and out she is busy, and husband is in ecstasy chanting 16 rounds and then doing mangalarti, and this is exploitation. So Prabhupada says a sannyasi cannot act like a householder, nor a householder can act like a sannyasi. But there are personalities who are beyond sannyas and household, and especially what to speak of a personality like Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is extremely bewildering. That's why later again these pastimes are going to come again and again. Lord Shiva's pastimes. Once Lord Shiva was engaged in Shringar Ras with Parvati, and some sages entered, and Lord Shiva just turned them into, the female. They were the male personalities entered, and Lord Shiva just turned them into female. Okay, all this is going to come in Bhagavatam. Another time, Lord Shiva is giving lecture on renunciation, sannyas, and his wife Bhavani, she is sitting on the lap, and in the audience, such great personalities are sitting are like the Chatush Kumar, and there is Narad Muni, Kubera, and all these personalities are sitting. Lord Shiva is here, is speaking on sannyas, importance of renunciation, with his wife sitting on the lap, and Lord Shiva is putting a hand around her, and he is speaking on sannyas. He can do that. And this is where Chitraketu gets, kind of a bewildered, and he makes a comment, and then another pastime continues. So Lord Shiva is extremely bewildering personality. And similarly, Lord Krishna also. And therefore, neither pravritti nor nivritti is act on such a personality. And therefore, Prabhupada quotes here beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita. Yada te moha kalilam buddhirvati tarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. When one's intelligence has passed out the dense forest of delusion, one becomes indifferent to the instructions of the Vedas. And in the purport, Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita quotes that verse by Madhavendra Puri. Sandhya Vandana Bharanam Astu Bhavato Bhosnana Tubhyam Namo. That all glories to all the Vedic rituals. Now I have taken full shelter of Krishna, and I don't have to follow any of these things. But this is for very highly elevated transcendentalist. Shruti vipratipanate yada sthyasati nishala samadhavachala buddhis tada yogam avapsasi. Prabhupada says such yoga is called as buddhi yoga or samadhi yoga, and in that samadhi one is completely beyond pravritti and nivritti. But as far as we as a grihastha or practicing devotees are considered, text 19 is for us. It is better to execute one's occupational duties than to criticize others, and especially such great personalities as Lord Shiva. Text 21. Mava padavya pitamastmadastita ya yajñashala sunadhuma vartmadihi tadanyatrupptai asubuddhimidita avyaktalinga avadhuta sevita. Translation.
My dear father, the opulence we possess is impossible for either you or your flatterers to imagine. For persons who engage in fruitive activities by performing great sacrifices are concerned with satisfying their bodily necessities by eating foodstuff offered as a sacrifice. We can exhibit our opulences simply by desiring to do so. This can be achieved only by great personalities who are renounced, self-realized souls. Purport. Sati's father was under the impression that he was exalted in both prestige and opulence, and that he had offered his daughter to a person who was not only poor but devoid of all culture. Her father might have been thinking that although she was a chaste woman, greatly adherent to her husband was in a deplorable condition. To counteract such thoughts, Sati said that the opulence possessed by her husband could not be understood by materialistic persons like Daksha and his followers, who were flatterers and were engaged in fruitive activities. Her husband's position was different. He possessed all opulences, but he did not like to exhibit them. Therefore, such opulences are called avyakta or unmanifested. But if required simply by willing, Lord Shiva can show his wonderful opulences, and such an event is predicted here, for it would soon occur. The opulence Lord Shiva possesses is enjoyable in renunciation and love of God, not in material exhibition of sense gratificatory methods. Such opulences are possessed by personalities like the Kumaras, Narada, and Lord Shiva, not by others. In this verse, the performers of the Vedic rituals are condemned. They have been described here as Dhuma Vartma Bhiya, those who maintain themselves on the remnants of sacrificial foodstuffs. There are two kinds of foodstuff offered in sacrifice. One kind is food offered in fruity ritualistic sacrifices, and the other, the best, is food offered to Vishnu. Although in all cases Vishnu is the chief deity on the sacrificial altar, the performers of fruity rituals aim to satisfy various demigods to achieve in return some material prosperity. Real sacrifice, however,
We will just section it here. So now Sati says, my dear father, the opulence we possess is impossible to imagine either for you or you are these cheap flatterers who are thinking Lord Shiva to be ordinary personality. Now what that opulence is, later we will see in the 6th chapter, where there is, when we come to the 6th chapter, Lord Brahma satisfies Lord Shiva. There is a description of the Kailash mountain. Yachi Dehi, we are going to see the Kailash through Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And then there is a description of the banyan tree under which Lord Shiva is sitting. And it is such fascinating description that Sati says, for a person like you or your flatterers, it is very difficult to imagine the opulence that is possessed by a great personality like Lord Shiva. But all his opulence is avyakta because he's not interested in moving around showing his opulence. And this can be achieved only by the great personalities or the self-realized souls. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Sati's father Daksha was thinking, oh, I have such a such a beautiful daughter. She's so chaste to husband, and look at the husband, what he's doing. He's moving from one smashan to another and putting the ash around and carrying some snakes. Daksha completely misunderstood Lord Shiva and very exalted position of Lord Shiva. Right. And the opulence, Daksha was thinking that such a poor person is Lord Shiva is so poor, he doesn't have a house also to stay. But such opulence, the opulence of Lord Shiva was completely unimaginable by Daksha. Although Lord Shiva has all the opulence, that opulence remains abhyakta, unmanifested, because he is not interested in just displaying all his opulences. Just like sometimes, recently, sometimes, we may come across somebody who may have some chiller in the hand. Chiller means some coins, 1 rupee coin, 10 rupee coin, and he may put in some dabba, and he may be just holding that dabba, making big noise, gada, 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 gada. And him, one may think, oh, such a big money one has. Another man will be quietly carrying 100 crores of check in his pocket. And there are such people, right? There are such people. Actually, we had visited one house attending Radhanath Maharaj program. And there, one person was sitting, such an old man, he was sitting on a banyan, he was sitting, and we were thinking, kaun hai ye aadmi, sitting like this. And then somebody gave him a kurta, and he was wearing kurta. And very, very, I just don't want to describe how ordinary he looked there. Very ordinary. And then Maharaj ji came, and and then we came to realize he was none other than the owner of this Vedanta Industries. Who, Agarwal? I just forgot the first name. And we were in the house of Kishore Biyani, who is the owner of Pantaloon and Big Bazaar and that chain. And then we realized, oh, he's such a big personality, right? His property was like 2 lakh crore that time. Who, Agarwal? Vedanta Industries? I just missed the first name of him. Vedanta Industries. Anil Agarwal. Yeah, so he was Anil Agarwalji, he was sitting there, who looked very simple, right? So their opulence remains abhyakta. It is very important. Opulence remains unmanifest. And that is the position of Lord Shiva. This is being described by Satī. That you may show some brilliance coming from your body, you may show some, when you come, it looks like the sun is coming, and it is also cheap, my father, that my husband is, is such a great personality. Even after entire dissolution takes place of all the material universes, he still remains in Kailash. Right? So his opulence is there, but his opulence is avyakta, is not cheaply manifested. And such opulence is not just possessed by my husband, Lord Shiva, but is also possessed by the Chatushkumar, Narada, and such great personalities, and not by any ordinary person. She is sarcastically calling her father and all the associates as Dhoomavartmabhi. Dhoomavartmabhi means followers of that smoke. She is saying that you are getting some opulence, you may do some yagya, you may please some demigod, this demigod here, that demigod here, the demigod may throw on you some opulence. So all your opulence is coming by the virtue of Dhoomavartmabhi, but Lord Shiva is not like that. When Lord Shiva, his opulence is not coming from all this Dhoomavartmabhi. Yeah, please continue.
Real sacrifice, however, is to satisfy Lord Vishnu, and the remnants of such sacrifices are beneficial for the advancement in devotional service. The process of elevation by performing sacrifice other than those aimed at Vishnu is very low, and therefore it has been condemned in this verse. Vishwanath Chakravarti has described the ritualistic performers to be like crows because crows delight in eating the remnants of food which has been thrown into the dustbin. All the Brahmanas who were present for the sacrifice were also condemned by Satī. Whether or not King Daksha and his flatterers could understand the position of Lord Shiva, Satī wanted to impress upon her father that he should not think her husband to be without opulence. Satī, being the devoted wife of Lord Shiva, offers all kinds of material opulences to the worshippers of Lord Shiva. This fact is explained in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in the 10th canto. Lord Shiva's worshippers sometimes appear more opulent than the worshipper of Lord Vishnu because Durga or Sati, being this superintendent in charge of material affairs, can offer all material opulences to the worshippers of Lord Shiva in order to glorify her husband, whereas the worshippers of Lord Vishnu are meant for spiritual elevation, and therefore their material opulence is sometimes found to decrease. These points are very nicely discussed in the 10th canto. Hare Krishna.
Further, Sati says that the opulence that you obtain are from very cheap sacrifices to the demigods. And therefore you are Dhoomavartmabhi, but the position of my husband, Lord Shiva, is far different. He is doing the real sacrifice. And what is the real sacrifice? The real sacrifice is to please the Supreme Lord Hari, Lord Vishnu. And my husband is always engaged in, the deep samadhi on Vishnu. Srila Prabhupada quotes here Vishwanath Chakravarti, where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the ritualistic performance are like the crows, because crows delight in eating the remnants of the food which has been thrown into the dustbin. And this is how Sati condemned her father, Lord Shiva, her father Daksha, and also the Brahmanas who are flatterers of Daksha. There was another reason Sati wanted to impress that don't think Lord Shiva is beggar or having no opulence. The opulence of Lord Shiva cannot be imagined by the personality like Daksha. In fact, forget Lord Shiva, even the worshippers of Lord Shiva are extremely rich and powerful. And there is this such a very amazing contradiction. What is the contradiction? The worshippers of Lord Shiva may appear very materially powerful and materially opulent, but worshippers of Lord Vishnu sometimes may appear very poor. Like there is a story of Sudama, or there is a story of, and then Lord Shiva's worshipper, one can see Ramana, the Bhasmasur, and they are like very powerful. And if you extend this little more, Lord Shiva himself being a Vaiṣṇava appears very materially poor. See, worshippers of Lord Shiva appear more opulent than worshippers of Lord Vishnu, but Lord Shiva is whose worshipper? Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Lord Shiva himself is a Vaishnava. Therefore, sometimes Lord Shiva may appear little, may appear poor compared to his own followers, but that is not the case. And this question is going to be raised by Parikshit Maharaj in the 10th canto, and there is a greater discussion on this, that what is the real opulence and what is the material opulence. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Ki jai. Thank you,
Thank
Prabhupada.
you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandatam.
Dadah.